No, that's exactly when I had to tell the sysadmin they had to completely delete the Active Directory and start over because there were Russian APT actors in the network. But I mean, what else are you going to do? Am I right?
I mean, it's 100. You yank the cables out, and then you go about your day.
You
That's
just
how we
walk
do it.
out. Like when you have the Ruskies in the network. And to be fair, they had a domain controller in Moscow. So I'm not really sure why they even paid for network defense, because at that point, really, what's the point? Welcome to Coffee Talk with Serge. As always, here with the beloved Audra Streetman and the tolerated Mick Baccio. We're going to be talking at you for about 30 to 45 minutes-ish. We have some exciting subjects today. We're going to talk about Ukraine because that's what one talks about. We're going to go over some stuff with Ticketmaster with a lot of empathy. We're going to go over some Apple things. We're going to talk about we're going to talk about biases and how many I have against Mick, and a deep dive on the election campaign Google stuff. Right. As always, we're going to start off saying no victim blaming, Audra.
Yep, no victim blaming.
That's a bias I'll break against Audra. And we're going to have a good time. So stick around, and we'll also talk about some upcoming events. So let's roll clip into the news segment.
All right, so that Ticketmaster story, Ryan, that you were talking about, this is next week. The president of Live Nation, which is the parent company of Ticketmaster, the president plans to testify before the Senate Judiciary Committee that problems with Ticketmaster sales for Taylor Swift's upcoming U.S. tour were related to a cyber attack, and this is the first that we're hearing of this. So Politico reports that the testimony will claim that the slowdown with the ticket sales was actually caused by 3 times the amount of bot traffic that Ticketmaster has ever experienced. And that traffic targeted the verified fan access code servers, which is interesting. So no tickets were actually sold illegally, according to the prepared remarks for the testimony. But Tuesday's hearing is going to focus on antitrust concerns, especially based on Ticketmaster's dominance in the industry and also the impact on consumers. And so this story, raised an interesting question about what exactly constitutes a cyber attack. And we were actually discussing this earlier, Mick, with, it reminds me of the debate about DDoS, right? Distributed denial of service. If, a website is taken down, is that a cyber attack? It's disruptive. So how do you measure that? And I'm curious what you think.
I don't think this was a cyber attack, in my opinion. If someone's trying to get access to Taylor Swift tickets for her upcoming tour, and let's be fair, who on this planet wasn't trying to get tickets for her upcoming tour, there's going to be a line. I mean, there's more hype around. I don't know if you've seen Tay in concert, but it is quite the show, Audra. I'd highly recommend it, all right? The lights, the pageantry, it's beautiful. So, of course, there'll be more traffic. And to me, this is very much like I can't believe the leopards ate my face. Like, there are bots that have, and if you've ever tried to buy tickets to a concert you wanted to go to, it's almost impossible because all the great seats are gone. The queues are 2,000 people ahead of you. So bots are a known thing. It's been known for a long time, and it's never been addressed by the vendor. So I'm curious if now is the time if it's going to be addressed at a federal level.
Let's elevate the conversation a bit, right? Part of this is saying we are now at the stage go Taylor Swift for now causing a congressional hearing, which is just incredible,
amazing.
But second, is this the new? I'm trying to think of a parallel, which there has to be, but just basically it's not my fault; it's the internet.
Funny how that works.
Yeah, this is crazy, right? We're moving to an area where you can legitimately have these conversations, and right now no one's really answering. But I think we're going to see this more and more with board of directors and CEO having to answer questions around the performance of their stock or their product or their company based on external factors that are going through.
Yeah.
Well, I think when you look behind the scenes, oh hey, it's the bots that did this. It's not us, it's the bots.
Yeah.
I'm a bit of a shoe guy, right? There's a big bot problem in shoes, and the vendors in that space like make efforts. And I wouldn't, you can categorize those efforts to a degree, whatever your opinion is, but they do make efforts to combat that. And I'm sure Ticketmaster Live Nation is the same thing, but this has been an egregious problem for a really long time. So,
but is it a cyber attack? Because this is a degradation of service, sometimes with malicious intent, sometimes not.
I would
Right?
say
okay. To devil's advocate, what is the not malicious point? Like, just so no one can get tickets to see Tay? Is that it? The criminal part I get, right?
There's some people who don't have joy in their life. And they need to find
I think no, because even Marcus said he wanted to go get tickets to it. So I dispute that.
Well, yeah, and don't mess with Taylor Swift fans, right? Like, they were not happy about this. And, in terms of Ticketmaster's business model and their threat model, this is obviously having a huge impact on that. And so I think from the perspective of Ticketmaster, this could be considered a cyber attack, because now there's all kinds of issues that the company's facing, like antitrust concerns and testimony before Congress. I mean, I think that says a lot. So when you look at impact, I know we talk about like the CIA triad, right? Like intent also, right? And maybe the intent is different, but when you were talking about degrading or denying service, you could argue that is a cyber attack.
I think this goes into insurance, right? Because what you're kind of referring there to is an act of God, which I think is more of what Mick is saying. Like, if you look at this from an insurance point of view and you're like, hey, I had a cyber attack, pay me out. And they're like, no, bro, that's just an act of God. Like, you done did something popular and this happened. Like,
yeah.
I did hear how Putin personally rebutted any attack, saying that Russia was involved, saying he did not want to have Swifties invading his borders. So it's good to know that's hit both from, Congress all the way across the world, international politics here.
Yeah, I think that Taylor Swift, Beyonce, those nations colliding in 24.
I'm going to let you finish. I'm going to let you finish, Mick. But first, I got to say,
so good.
My pop reference for the year. Pretty proud about that.
4 years ago,
I'm
was
actually
fun.
impressed.
Like 10 years ago, actually. Yeah.
All right. Well,
absolutely rough.
Several more news stories to get to. So the next one, we have a couple of Apple updates. So the company patched a remotely exploitable zero-day vulnerability, and this is affecting older iOS 12 devices. So a researcher over at Google Tag actually discovered this vulnerability last year, and it affects WebKit, which is the browser engine that powers Safari and some other apps. And so Apple said in an update that it's aware of reports that this vulnerability may have been actively exploited. So there is now a fix for older devices. I believe newer devices were updated late last year, I believe. So now this is covering people that have older devices. And then Apple also released iOS 16.3 today, which actually supports hardware security keys, which is exciting. So, YubiKey, for example, you can now use that as an additional verification step for two-factor authentication instead of the 6-digit code that you'll get, and maybe you have to track down another Apple device in order to enter the code on your phone. Or maybe you only have one Apple device and you don't have a separate device to get that code. So this is another alternative. And the interesting thing too is that users are required to register 2 keys. So you have one key that you carry with you, and then another as a backup. And so I think this is really good news for Apple implementing this.
I know it's been a hot minute since I had to deal with this day to day, but I remember when I last lived in the UK and had a company that I worked for, and the ICO started leveling fines for unencrypted data being pushed out. And they were just doing £100,000 fines left and right because people left their laptops and they couldn't prove it was encrypted. Areas like this really, like that was for years for the Verizon DBIR, one of the number one basically findings that they had was unencrypted data being left out and available for people to pick up. So it's these simple things that if you make it seamless and easy will actually be hugely impactful on the world. But it's going to be interesting as people deal. I was dealing with this the other day because I had to change my Apple passwords because I forgot it, and it had me like running around the house trying to find an Apple device because it was going like, oh, you can change your password as long as you were able to log on to another Apple device that you also have in your possession. And
Right.
anyway.
And Drew, our producer, actually points out an interesting thing about this, that this is one of, if not the only, end-to-end encryption options for a vendor that you don't have the option of like a text message backup, right? Like sometimes you can implement YubiKey or a hardware security key for your login, but then you have a backup in case you don't have your key with you, or in case you lose it, or something, that can happen. But with this, if you register the keys, there's no backups. You really have to have that second key in a safe spot. So that's interesting.
Isn't there backup codes for it?
No, that's
I don't believe so, right, Drew?
Like ones you can print out?
I'd have to look at that. I don't know.
I know
about
the thing is not new. Like I'm super into this.
Nope.
If you look at Google's advanced protection program, and you'll see the endorsement. Anyway, but if you look at Google's advanced protection program, they have 2 tokens as well. And I think, for show and 1 for go, right? Much like Ryan's dogs. So it's a really good idea because it kind of verifies that level. Is this for everyone? No, 100% not. But if you're in that line where it fits, it kind of levels that playing field and it increases your personal security model. I think it's fantastic. It puts it in line with everything else and matches kind of what Google's had in place for a bit. So it's good to see Apple pulling that out now. I'm curious when it will filter down to the ecosystem, right? Because the 2 biggest vendors in that mobile space are Google and Apple. So if they've decided this is implementation for everyone, it makes that secured by default we keep talking about that much closer.
Right.
I am curious what Director Ray feels about this, since he has been a huge outspoken advocate against anti-vit against end-to-end encryption, right? Saying we need that ability for the FBI and law enforcement to counter terrorism and etc. But this is
but someone think of the children. That's kind of the standard go-to, right? Is because of all of the illicit things on the internet involving children, we need to read everything on the internet at all times, and that's going to be the ongoing argument around encryption. Apple, I believe, does a really weird thing, and Drew can check me on this. If you opt into that end-to-end encryption, there is no recovery. There's no, hey, I lost my private key. They deleted it, so you're kind of on your own for that. And
right.
It's amazing to see that happen because there's not much you can do, but it verifies, it ensures that level of encryption and privacy, which most of us really want, right?
Yep.
Yeah, or you could have like 6 YubiKeys. I know plenty of people end up collecting them, right? And you can just, I'm guessing you can register more than 2. That's a strategy, right?
Sure.
Worried about losing access. So, all right. Well, our third story today is about Ukraine. And so Ukraine actually just signed an agreement this month to join NATO's Cooperative Cyber Defense Center of Excellence, or CCD-COE. And so before this is official, all of the group's members actually have to sign this agreement. And CCD-COE is based in Estonia. And the group helps to coordinate cybersecurity training for NATO bodies. It's also behind one of the largest cyber defense exercises in the world, which is Locked Shields. And they also have a red team exercise called Cross Swords, which Splunk was actually a part of last year, which was really exciting.
We were actually part of both. Surge was part of the Cross Shields, and we had some folks go over for the I always mix. I'm like broken swords and bent shields. Anyway, we did both of them, but Flores went out.
Was there, and he's got a blog, and it's awesome. And Drew will put a link in the chat. It's Cross Swords, and it's Drew, throw that link in there. It's fantastic work, and it shows how you do adversary emulation at a scale that NATO would have to respond to. So that's a unique challenge in itself. Right?
I'm a huge fan of this. I don't think anyone here is surprised to know Splunk and this team is very pro-Ukrainian defense. And one of the biggest questions that we've had over the last year since the Ukrainian invasion from customers, especially in EMEA, has been around defending against Russian threats. Then it turned into this weird area of, maybe it isn't that big of a deal. this whole Russia thing was overblown, and the reality is absolutely categorically not. Like, we have seen consistent targeting by Russian adversaries against NATO partners, especially Eastern European partners. I know, Audra, a month and a half ago, we were talking about the KillNet campaign, but against Lithuania. There's been a lot of activity in Germany that you can just Google around and kind of do a Google Translate on German blogs. But like, there's a lot of activity here happening, and I think supporting Ukraine from a point of view of cyber is great. As we've discussed on this show many times before, I think one of the fascinating things about cyber warfare today is the reality of, it's one thing to send malware to take down a factory, but why bother when you can send a cruise missile and completely destroy it? And so this is a good step in the right direction, but it'll be interesting to see how it pans out and how much it's actively able to help, I think.
Right. All right. Well, let's go on now to our upcoming events. Yes, we have a few to mention today, and one of them is actually the Splunk Predictions. We have the report that's coming out in a webinar as well, right? Ryan and Mick, you guys are holding a webinar later this month. What can people expect?
We are hanging out. Hopefully stable internet. That's where we're going to start.
Fingers crossed.
We're not doing it at Mick's house. Yeah, we're going to go over the last year predictions. We're going to say what we got right, what we got wrong. We'll be extremely funny and quirky and amusing, hopefully, and try to do better than at the same day. I believe EMEA with Kirsty Payne is also hosting one, and ours is going to be a lot better. So definitely tune in for the one that Mick and I are giving, because we're quoted in it. So, we're obviously
that's clearly.
It'll be interesting. We had some conversations about AI, and it's funny, if you had asked me 4 months ago about my thoughts on AI, it would be very different than it would be today. And I haven't really seen anything have such a black and white change in my mental, and I think the entire world's opinion. Like, I do feel like we just saw before GPT and post Chat GPT. And I'm sure we'll be talking about that in our predictions report. So stay tuned. And then I will be at the SANS CTI Summit along with David Bianco and Dr. Ryan Federman, and even Mick Baccio will be around at least on the 31st. So if you're there, come by, have Mick buy you something to eat so we can expense it very quickly before February 1st. But yeah, we'll be around and in the Alexandria area, and hope to see folks. Being an advisor for the SANS CTI Summit for the last 4 years has been an absolute pleasure. I do believe it's one of the most interesting cybersecurity conferences that are held, primarily because it is actually a threat intelligence conference. We do a lot of work to try to make sure the subjects are about threat intelligence, not just blue team and network defense, which are phenomenal, but it's not necessarily the same as an entire lecture series on cognitive biases.
Right. It's hard to say, hey, this is my favorite child, right? Like, all the SANS conferences are great, they all provide value, but
the one that picked me to be an advisor on is obviously the best.
Right. Yeah, like, you don't want to come out and say it, but like, this one's the best one.
Yep, that'll be exciting also. And we also have an announcement for Coffee Talk with our episodes. We're going to switch from every other week to every week. On Tuesday, we'll have some sort of episode. Coffee Talk will be every other Tuesday, and then the Tuesdays in between, we're hoping to feature some interviews and some other interesting content. So that'll start in about a month
March
or
7th,
so.
I think, is our first.
In March. So that's exciting. And then Mick, you have an exciting update from. Was this last week that you were at the White House, or was this the other day? I can't remember.
So hard to
remember.
keep up.
Time doesn't have any meaning. But before, hey, if you want to come hang out on a Tuesday, shoot us a note, drop a line in the comments, and come on and chat with us. We'll talk security. We'll see how that goes. But yeah, I think it was last week. It might have been 3 weeks. I don't know. Time has no meaning. But I had a chance to go back to the White House. I got a note from Bo Woods from I Am the Cavalry saying, hey, you want to come hang out on this Hackers on the Hill event at the Executive Office Building at the Eisenhower. So it was a fantastic day. Got to learn more about the National Cyber Directorate and met Director Inglis, learn more about the mission and what we're doing to make things more secure now and moving forward. It was a fantastic time and a great event. And I wrote a blog about it, and it just got published like 20 minutes ago. So that's why we're kind of scrambling on this. But yeah, go check it out. It was a fantastic day.
Did they take you bowling? For those who don't know, why is that the most important question I can ask?
Because that's the only thing you wanted me to do when I worked at the White House was take you bowling. That was it.
Well, things you learn, right? I didn't know there was a bowling alley. It's interesting fact.
Yeah, so I ran a threat intelligence team at the White House for a number of years, and one of the perks is that you get the opportunity to go bowling. There is a bowling alley in the basement of the Eisenhower office building, or executive office building. Human bowling alley. It's a little 2-lane bowling alley. It was set up by Richard Nixon, and you just hang out and go bowl. And it's a time you can run it out for you and a couple friends and just go hang out there. And Ryan really made take advantage of that, and then I thank him for that because those are some fun memories. Hazy-ish, but fun.
Hazy, yeah. And then Mick, if I wanted to go swimming in the White House, could I still do that, or where would I go?
You would have to go to the pool behind the West Wing, but like the old pool is the press briefing room. That's where it is.
Oh, the press pool.
So fun. Yeah, the press pool is literally a former swimming pool.
Is a former swimming pool, right?
Oh, didn't know that either.
The more you know.
Yeah, learn
fun facts about the White House.
All right, so if anyone out there is attached to the office of the president or works at the White House, let's get Audra a tour. All right, let's get Audra a tour of the White House.
I've never been on a tour of the White House.
She can learn all these facts.
That would be so fun. Yeah, because I think
let's break our biases about that knowledge, Audra. What do you think?
Oh yes, all right. Let's move on now. Let's roll the charity challenge clip.
And now, Splunk Cybersecurity 60-second charity challenge. Remember the rules. You've got to get through an entire subject in 60 seconds, or you donate to today's charity of choice. Good luck.
All right, so there was a lot of speculation about the possibility of a cyber attack earlier this month when the FAA system outage led to a full ground stop at U.S. airports. So this was earlier this month, the same day NAV Canada, which runs the similar version of that same system, they also reported an outage. It's with the NOTAM system, Notice to Air Missions. And so NAV Canada said that it did not believe that its outage was related to the FAA outage. And now we know that the FAA outage was actually caused by a damaged database file. And so far, there's no evidence of a cyber attack. So I thought that these two incidents are a good reminder of how cognitive bias can actually impede investigations into technology issues. So, there were theories about a possible cyber attack behind both events, which you could say is an example of illusory correlation, which is basically when you have a perceived relationship between two events, but there actually isn't any relationship. And I think it can be easy to miscorrelate two events if they're rare and impactful and happen to involve the same technology. So Mick and Ryan, my question to you then for the challenge is to share what biases you think are most common among security analysts and recommendations to try to hedge against those biases.
Now, Audra, did you read about the illusory bias in the cuckoo's egg?
I actually learned about this from Katie Nichols, who is an amazing instructor for cyber threat intelligence, and I took her course through SANS in December. Learned all about different, logical fallacies and ways that can, affect assessments negatively. We've talked on the show before about like the analysis of competing hypotheses and other, structured analytic techniques that you can use to try to, structure your thinking in a way to work against any sort of bias. But it is really important in cybersecurity, especially when you're making assessments that are based on some facts and then also, interpretations. And there's a lot of
throw all that book learning away. All threat intelligence is you put a file in a virus total, and then you just see if Bill Leonard Tag wrote about it. That's
exactly. All right. So is that your answer then?
Yeah, that's my answer. It's
okay.
All right. I lost last time, as has been a very upsetting streak, and I believe shows the bias against me personally. Mick, your choice. Do you want to?
I think it's your bias against winning. That's I think you should go. I'll go first. Yeah, I'll go first. Why not? All right, Drew, cue it up.
We had a bit of a preemptive.
So the most common bias in cyber threat intelligence, in my opinion, is confirmation bias, right? Which is like a kitten stuck in its ways, and you don't consider any other possibility. So if you want to avoid this, you should kind of approach your work with an open-mindedness and not let preconceptions bear down on your judgment. It can cause pandemonium otherwise. So, strive to maintain a neutral and objective perspective and evaluate and interpret threat intelligence. You should always be transparent about your methods and assumptions and be willing to have your work validated by others in your field. You want alternative explanations. You might be wrong. Don't let the product define the process. It should be fair play, according to Geneva Conventions, that your work shows how you got to that point using the telemetry that you have and consider the other hypothesis why you might be wrong. Did Ryan leave because I made fun of him? Oh.
I had a horrible sneeze. It was disgusting, frankly.
You didn't want us to screen cap it?
No, I did not. I know what these viewers do, and it's disgusting. Okay, let's go here. Let's put on the clock. So Webster's defined bias as being in favor for or against one thing, person, or group compared with another, usually in a way considered to be unfair. I can say, in my opinion, one of the most important things for any network defender, and especially for a threat intelligence analyst to learn, is how to identify and break biases in their thoughts and analysis. These are some of the biases that I think that are most valuable for blue teamers to know about and be aware of. The first is framing effect, the idea that you are influenced by context and delivery. Are you only looking at a problem because someone gave it to you on a platter? Are you only saying that the biggest, most important thing in your network is spear phishing because that's the only data that you have to look at? The second one is availability bias, which ties into framing. Are you only looking at this because it's the most recent information? Are you only coming up with this analysis and output because it's the only thing you're seeing? The final is headline bias. Is it Russia, or is that just all you're hearing about? I could keep going on, but breaking your bias is one of the most important things you can do as an analyst and as a human being.
All right. Does anyone watching have an opinion? Feel free to put it in the chat if you think Mick or Ryan won. I will say, Mick, I liked that you talked about consulting with other people when you're making assessments. I think that's really important to have diversity of thought and to not only rely on your own point of view, because that's an easy way for cognitive bias and other issues to come up. And Ryan, I like that you named a couple different examples of biases. So
I thought we were just supposed to pick a bias.
Or, know, maybe I wasn't.
Bias.
Yeah.
Wow, -10 from David Bianco.
That's right. Thank you, David.
Bonuses. So,
well, he controls the pyramid of pain. He can just use that.
Well, I don't see any responses yet. Do you see any? I don't know.
No. Well, we have David who's trying to get fired. But other than that, I think we're fine. It's
Oh, did David vote for Mick?
No, he just voted against me.
Oh.
So that counts as a vote for Mick. It's really like a step back,
Yeah.
The darker beard won. So that's one
Julian, I believe what you said is the handsomer one, the most handsome.
And whether or not your vote is biased, I guess
Derek
that's something
says
to
your
keep in
vote
mind
would be
that
too
Derek
biased.
pointed out.
Oh, in favor or against?
Well,
I think
Drew, our judge extraordinaire, as always, one of the greatest people on the planet.
Wow, it's the internet that's really. Well, Mick, you said that you were going to get Audra a visit to the White House and not me, so I'm going to go with Kovar.
Boom.
Right.
Because I am biased at going to the White House.
There we go. To be fair, he didn't say which White House, so
that's, all right, Drew. Remember that. Having
wonderful.
seen what both of them are like, I tell you, one is inherently better than the other. I'm just saying.
Today we're going to be donating to a Ukrainian cause, or Mick is, and we will throw that out in a bit. We just have to pick the right one. And the good news is February 1st is right around the corner, so we renew. I lost so much. Splunk is such a wonderful company to work for because they actually match our donations up to, I think, $500 a year. I lost so often that I'm out of money. So I'm looking forward to February 1st rolling around so I can get Splunk to match my donation so I don't have to pay out of pocket twice. So there we go.
Struggles the surge directly.
Mick, make sure you take a screenshot and put it in the chat afterwards so people know you're honest. We want transparency in this show. So I think we're ready to roll clip on our deep dive, Drew. And now we talk about things that just happen to be on our minds with who's ever here, because we made this up before I knew who'd accept my meeting invite.
All right, so our last story today is about campaign emails, and this is a Washington Post story that came out today, basically that Google is going to stop exempting campaign email from automated spam detection. So this is after, I believe it was the GOP that blamed Gmail spam filters for fundraising for that party. So Mick, I'm definitely curious your take on this because you worked in politics for so long, with how important, first of all, email filters can be for getting through to people and how important fundraising is and what the impact of this might be.
This is so stupid. Like, it was a pilot
Thanks for coming, everyone.
program.
It's been a great day.
I'll see you next in 2 weeks. This was a pilot program that Google had put in place, right, specifically for campaigns. And if you have a Google account, and who doesn't really, spam filtering, spam services by any ISP is one of the fundamental things to ask for. If you've ever been around politics, or if you donated money to anything, you're going to be on someone's list, and the frequency of emails that you get asking for money depends on the person on the other side, how often they send them. Your ISP filters that spam email based on that and based on how you interact. The reason why Ryan never shows up to any of the things I invite him to is because long ago he marked one of my emails as spam, and it just lives on that list. So
that's it. That's the only reason.
That's what I tell myself. It really is. That's what I tell myself. But I think when you look at it in that greater context, this is just a service that Google was providing. This is spam filtering. If your emails are getting marked as spam, you should probably look at how you are sending those emails and what the content is and how your users are interacting with them, how the recipients are interacting with them. And Ryan, I think that's email fundamentals, right?
Yeah, and before we go further, Mick, do you have any biases that you want to break for for everyone here about your connections with this program?
I didn't send any spam. No.
Never involved with it, huh? Yeah, I'm interested to see where it goes. There's a lot of stuff ramping up for elections for 2024 already, which is shocking. I guess not that shocking.
That season, right? It's what, 18 months?
We're going to be, Mick, actually, you've been a part of the JCDC election security committee for a bit now, and I know they kind of just finished off the 2022, and I'm sure they're starting to ramp up for 2024 in the next couple months. How do you feel? Like, we've talked about this before, back when you were a CISO for Mayor Pete, and we discussed, email security has literally, in my opinion, changed the world, right? If Podesta hadn't clicked that link, would we have had a Hillary presidency?
He did click. You know what? It's a whole different conversation.
He clicked on the link. He clicked the link. He did ask for permission, but he clicked the link. The link was clicked. He clicked it. It was clicked.
I can't recall. We may have been. I can't recall. I read a lot of stuff around that time, so
hard to know what color wire it was that you read. That's the yeah.
So I think the hardware token kind of will eliminate that account takeover model, but at the same time, this is just junk email that I don't want in my inbox. and there might be some tuning to that algorithm that needs to happen. And I think that
But Nancy Pelosi says if I just donate $5 more,
man, right? And again, and I don't want to knock the DNC or WinRed or GOP or anything like that, but you're going to get emails all the time asking you to save democracy or save America or make it great or super powered or something like that. And the frequency that you get those emails depends on the campaign that sends it. So how aggressive are they is going to be how your ISP determines whether it's spam or not. Whether you open it or whether you just delete it, that gets taken into account as well. So
yeah,
I'm curious how this goes. I hope the program does get put back in place because it is a phenomenal effort by Google in this space to kind of make things better for all campaigns, make it an even playing field. So I hope it does come back or continue past the sunset date and in whatever iteration they choose to. But I just think to strike it down because it's biased against you and the data proves that it's not. It's not a great look. It's not.
Well, and I think this also has a marketing component to it too. And I'm not a marketing expert, but I'm just thinking of the ways that I've seen campaign messages, and it's, email, advertisements on TV, mailers, things you get in mail. So I'm curious, what's the most effective way for that they might be focusing, zeroing in on email, if that's proven to be more targeted?
Hear this. When you look at how a campaign email comes across, right? It demands urgency. It demands that you click on a link. Often the grammar is set to a very low level so that the highest amount of people can actually click on it and understand and read it. And when I've done analysis for ML on natural language processing for spear phishing, those are all things you start looking for. So once again, it's, I'm shocked that the GOP was getting it more than the DNC. Once again, not victim blame. Well, I guess they're not victims here, but at the end of the day, anything that requires urgency and for you to click something and has money involved, those are all very suspicious things.
So I talked about this when I keynoted B-Sides Charm about what spam emails, campaign emails are like. It's essentially the same thing. There are political campaigns that have been put on spam email filters. When you look at what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to get my message out for a person, my mascot, to as many people as I can, as fast as I can, and get them to donate money. So that's exactly what a spam email sounds like, right? Yeah. So yeah, you getting put in that bucket, the spam bucket, it's going to happen.
I mean, actually, just looking at my Gmail right now, I just got an email from Ruben Gallego for Senate and Katie Porter for Senate, who I'm a huge Katie Porter fan because her whiteboard lectures are freaking phenomenal. So
amazing.
Very happy for her. Katie Porter, 2024.
You two are going to be email buddies forever.
Yeah, 100%. It's she really needs
mostly a one-way relationship, I think, but email buddies forever. Yeah.
Yeah, you can try to respond, but I don't know anyone will. I am curious, how many people respond to those?
I'm sure more than you want to think of people just writing long missive responses back to MailChimp. And probably both sides. I would love to donate, but my third car just broke down and I need to get to and the other side of I will firebomb your house if you send me more emails. So probably 1-1. Poor MailChimp. I don't know for sure MailChimp is involved. It's just they tend to be huge in that space. So yeah. I think that's all we have for today, and we're pushing up at 40 minutes. What's our recap? Mick, you and I, and David Bianco and Dr. Fetterman are going to be in DC at the end of the month for San CTI area. 31st, and I'll be there the 30th and 31st. You and I are doing a webinar for security predictions, which is going to be very fun and very interesting and insightful and innovative. People are going to learn things. It's just incredible. And then we're going to be bringing a lot more exciting stuff starting in March, where we're going to be doing this every week. One of us will be here every week, and then the three of us will be here every other week. So should be pretty awesome. I'm really looking forward to it. Thank you all for joining. I hope you had a good time, as much fun as we had. And I think that's it. Drew, take us away. Surge.